Grace has got a bucket list, Goldi faces discrimination, and will Maya get her music mojo back? Hello, I'm Carrie, and welcome to Degrassi Corner. And in this video, we're talking about episode 404, Roll Up to the Club Like. Now, the good news for Grace, her new lungs have arrived. The bad news, they didn't survive the trip, so no transplant for now. However, Jonah sees this as an opportunity for Grace to create a bucket list. While working on the list during class, Esme suggests that Grace add have an orgasm to the list since she's never had one. And Jonah says that they're going to do one of the things on Grace's list tonight, so she assumes that, of course, it's sex, and she asks Zoe and Rasha for advice. But it turns out that Jonah's actually planning to take Grace fishing. During their fishing trip, Jonah says that he's messed up because of his past, and Grace shouldn't want to sleep with him. Then he drops a major bombshell. He says the reason he's straight edge is because back during his wild days, he got a 14-year-old girl pregnant, he treated her poorly, and the girl's family has banned him from ever being in the child's life. So that's something he wanted to address before they started considering sex, and we find out that Grace and Jonah are actually waiting until prom night before they do it. There isn't really much to talk about in terms of Grace and her health. It's obvious she's not going to have the transplant surgery while she's still a student at Degrassi, because they're having her graduate at the end of this season, and that surgery would definitely take her out for way too long. But the main thing about this plot is that bombshell from Jonah. How many years have people begged for him to have a backstory, and when they finally give him one, it's a pretty wild one. Of course, people will be upset that Degrassi never explored any of this, or never gave him a plot where he tracks down his daughter and tries to be a part of her life. You know, people are going to say, well, they can make him like Mike Dallas. And if you don't know who Mike Dallas is, he was introduced in season 12. They didn't reveal that he was a teen dad until the end of season 12. And we found out that he'd had the kid when he was 15 and kind of sucked as a dad at first. But is it really necessary? Keyword being necessary, to follow that similar path with Jonah. I know, people like having information gift wrapped to them. We need every piece of information revealed and the backstory perfectly fleshed out. But at the same time, real life doesn't work that way. Just me even right now thinking back to situations with people in my own life and how uncomfortable I feel thinking about the way that things ended. There was no resolution. There was no closure. Those situations just ended, and that's that. And the discomfort of not knowing what happened or not knowing if there's a way to resolve the situation does create a realistic sense of hopelessness when it comes to Jonah's backstory. And you see that on his face when he talks about how he can't fix it. To him, it's done, and there's nothing he can do. Not everything is going to work out, and not everyone is going to try and try and try again until there's absolutely no shred of hope left. It sucks not having closure, but a lack of closure is also a very real part of life. Now, on to the next plot with Goldi. Winston actually asks Goldi to go with him to a dessert tasting for prom, but she declines because it's against her beliefs to go out alone with the boy. However, she changes her mind when Rasha agrees for her and Zoe to tag along. The four are having a really good time when Zoe and Rasha have to leave, and Goldi decides that she's actually okay with being alone with Winston for this one time. The two admit that they like each other, but when it's time for them to leave, they learn transportation in the city has been temporarily shut down because of a terrorist attack in Brussels. Now, Winston suggests they walk home and take a shortcut, but along the way, they're stopped by several white people angry about the terrorist attack in Brussels. And these people berate Goldi for wearing her hijab and demand that she take it off. During this encounter, Winston suggests that Goldi listen to them and remove her hijab, but she stands up to the group who believes that all Muslims are terrorists. Then one of the guys tries to snatch Goldi's hijab off her head and a scuffle ensues, but Goldi's able to get away. When she gets home, she tells her dad everything that happened, and he calls the police. And we also learn that several other Muslims were the victims of attacks similar to Goldi's throughout the city because of what happened in Brussels. Winston ends up trying to apologize for asking Goldi to remove her hijab during the incident, but Goldi still feels a little weird about the fact that he did that, and she ends up resigning from the prom committee in order to start a Muslim Students Association. There's so many emotions running through my head in this plot. First of all, Goldi and Winston, once again adorable in that restaurant scene. These are essentially two glorified extras on the show who have spent a majority of their screen time playing support for other characters. So it's pretty amazing that they can present such sweet chemistry when it's just the two of them on screen. But then all hell breaks loose when they're confronted by the people pissed off by the Brussels terror attacks, and Winston asking Goldi to remove her hijab is definitely questionable, but I really can't be mad at him in this specific situation for that, because in this day and age, people are pretty emboldened to speak their minds and stand up for what they believe in, especially online. You see a lot of people puffing their chests out on social media these days, but it's a completely different situation when you're face to face with a hostile group of people who are looking for any reason to beat your ass or worse. And don't forget that Goldi and Winston are teenagers, so I totally get what Winston was trying to do there, because they are so lucky. It could have been far worse than Goldi getting her hijab ripped off. And also praise Goldi for immediately taking her experience and wanting to use it as a catalyst to protect other Muslims who might suffer the same type of ignorant hatred that she faced. And finally, the all-inclusive gang asked Maya to write an intro song for them, and while she doesn't really feel confident in her creative skills, Tristan pushes her to do it. The gang isn't a fan of her first song, and they give her a list of vague instructions on how to improve, which starts to stress Maya out. And while venting at the hospital with Tristan, news of the terrorist attack in Brussels breaks on the TV. And Maya feels herself becoming consumed by the death toll, just like her phase in season 3 when she was obsessed with tragedy porn. But thankfully, Tristan turns the TV off and tries to help her relax. Maya says she doesn't feel okay because she's still getting triggered by everything, and Tristan gets her to relax and help him with the musical part of his therapy, and he tells her to not give up and to keep trying. So Maya eventually comes up with a song idea that involves the all-inclusive team singing and playing instruments for the intro. I love the fact that we're seeing Maya still struggle mentally, and it's not just showing her feeling sad, it's showing how her depression is making it difficult for her to do something that would normally be a walk in the park for her, like her creating music. That moment where Maya sees the Brussels attack on TV is pretty incredible. Like, here's this huge trigger right in her face, and we visually see her slowly getting sucked back into that dark place where she was obsessed with death videos back in season 3. And it's also been a while since we've seen Maya and Tristan have meaningful interactions, so it's pretty great that even with all of their history, there's still enough of a connection there for one to lean on the other for emotional support. And the theme song itself might seem small and silly, but it's a pretty big victory for Maya being able to overcome the mental hurdles that come with depression. Now, normally Netflix pushes you into the next episode really quickly, but stick through the ending credits of this episode to hear the finished all-inclusive theme song, because it is pretty cool. And by the way, Degrassi, please, for the love of God, release the entire Maya Matlin music collection. She has released hit after hit in Next Class, and I have this thing called money that I would be more than willing to give to you in exchange for all of her songs. And that's going to do it for this episode of Degrassi Corner. Leave your thoughts on episode 404. Roll up to the club like in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to Degrassi Corner for more Next Class news, reviews, and more.